I've tried looking for good jobs to move out, but she insisted that I stay with her until I'm ready, and until I finish college. I ended up getting a little full-time job anyway while I was a part-time student, just to at least get used to it. Anyway, my mother is a generally nice person and tries to help people any way she can, but sometimes she doesn't know when to tell people to stop or tell people no. This all started in March of this year when my mom noticed her grandchild living out of a hotel. My mom was really upset that their mother, I'll call her BM, would allow this to even happen, and she decided she wanted them to live with her. To add, my mom told BM that she had 3 months to at least get a decent job and start looking for places to stay. So BM decided that she would stay and began staying with us. It first started when BM would leave randomly throughout the day and wouldn't come back until late at night. She would leave her children, she has 6 in all. 2 are from her current relationship and would not tell anyone. I let it slide at first because I do love playing and spending time with my nieces and nephew. But then, it would be times where she'd leave for the whole night and won't come back until morning. And if anyone knows anything about kids, it's that they love waking up early in the morning. So even before they would have to be at school, they'd be up and waiting. Now, even this wasn't a problem because they were in school. But on the weekends, they would wake up and want something to eat or want to play. Now again, I wouldn't have a problem with this. But on some weekends, I would sleep in from working long shifts the week before. So having children who aren't yours burst into your room at the crack of dawn really started to make me irritated. But on to the situation that made me snap. This was in May, around the second to last week. It was the oldest 2 kids' last day of school, first in kindergarten, and I got up wondering why their mom wasn't there getting them ready like usual. It was already way past 8. Here, school opens at 7:45, and they would usually be up before 7:30 to get ready. At first, I thought maybe they would be late, but after they started waking up and 9 rolled around, I just assumed that BM wasn't coming. So I just let them eat, gave them a bath, and let them do their own thing. Now, the kids aren't like toddlers, the youngest 2 are 4, but they do need someone to watch them and at least be there when they are hungry. And somehow, I was always the one who got left with them and had to be the adult in charge. So on that day, I got fed up and told BM that she needed to come and get her children. I sent the message thinking that she'd at least tell me why she wasn't there, but she didn't. She got upset and said that they lived there and that she doesn't need to come get them. Another thing to note is that at times she would take them and stay with her current boyfriend and stay the night, but they would always end back up at my mom's house. So I guess she assumed that I meant to come get and take them, but I meant that she needed to come get and take care of them. After she responded, I didn't really say anything, just let her type and explain nothing. But even then, she still didn't come until late that night. While there, I heard her yelling and cursing at someone, so I guess she was upset before she came. But after getting off the phone, she went into the extra room and began tossing bags of clothes on the floor. Another major thing to add was that my oldest nephew, same age as me, was staying there as well. He was also an automatic caregiver when BM would leave or when I'd have to be gone for work. But back to the situation. I got up to see what was going on, and she just snapped on me. She called me a stupid fool and told me that I didn't have to do anything for her kids. I got called a dumb witch, told I never even did anything for her kids, and she even threatened me. I was not surprised. She always has a temper, but she never talked to me that way. I just told her that she only needed to talk to me like that once, and I just got quiet. At this time, my mom began to wake up and told her to stop all the yelling so she can sleep. And I got upset because I was sure she heard what BM had just said, but I just went to my room while BM was still talking. Eventually, things got heated again after my nephew began to take up for me, and also say he was tired too. Again, she began yelling at him and calling him all sorts of names, telling him that the kids lived here and that no one was told to watch them. I just stayed in my room and left it, while she left again, this time leaving her other 2 children there, 1 and 8 months. The morning after, I was called into my mother's room to talk. BM was already there, acting like she did no wrong, and even tried to seem innocent by not saying anything. Then my mother told me that I was in the wrong for telling BM to get her children. I was confused but asked how, and she said the same thing BM said, that no one needed anyone to watch the kids. This time I was shocked and asked why. And then she went on about how when I was younger, she would leave me and my siblings like that and that it wasn't a big deal. And that made me laugh because even if she did that, I still didn't like it. She then began to say how we were all family and that we should want to look out for each other. And I reminded her that BM wasn't family, her kids were. That tipped her off and she began to yell at me, saying that we all had things going on and that we were all no better than the other. While this is happening, BM is still trying to seem respectful, staying quiet and just fiddling about. At that point, I just left to contemplate what happened. And now I'm asking, am I the idiot for telling BM that she needed to come get her children? I know this situation doesn't sound too crazy, but I just wanted some input, especially since my mom was so actively on BM's side and disregarded everything that was said to me. Almost forgot. I don't think many of you understand how hard it is to afford a house, let alone an apartment in the United States. There was even one person who just disregarded the whole situation and just said, "Move out 'cause it's not my house." I've helped my mom pay bills on multiple occasions, so the house is just as much mine as any other person who's invited to stay there. I'm already in the action of looking for places and finding a better paying job. I just wanted to confirm that this situation isn't something that should be swept under the rug. I appreciate all of you guys' advance, and if I don't decide to delete this post, I'll make an update. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. OP, my goodness, M and BM are using you. Leave if you can or lock yourself up in your room until you can leave. That's what I'd like to say, but I worry about the children too. Maybe tell them both that she needs to get a babysitter or use some daycare option. And if not, they shouldn't blame you if the children are neglected and BM gets reported to CPS. Because these things don't stay secret very long. Comment 2. Not the idiot, but lock your door. Stop taking care of the kids. Call CPS if you are the only one home, especially if she leaves a 1-year-old at home. As she said, not your kids. Leave when she leaves. Don't stay with the kids. Go sit in a cafe or hang out with friends. Stay out of the house unless you are sleeping. Move out when you can. If your mother is on board, then there's nothing you can do. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments and advice from my last post. So here's what's been happening since then. After that big blow up with BM, things got even more tense around the house. BM continued to leave the kids with us, and my mom kept defending her. I was still working my full-time job and going to school part-time, so my schedule was packed. One day, I came home from work to find the house in chaos. The kids were running around, the youngest ones were crying, and BM was nowhere to be found. My mom was out running errands, so it was just me and my nephew trying to manage everything. I decided to confront BM again when she finally came back late that night. I told her that this couldn't keep happening and that she needed to take responsibility for her kids. She just brushed me off and said she had things to do and that I should mind my own business. This time, I didn't back down. I told her that if she didn't start taking care of her kids, I would call Child Protective Services. She laughed and said I wouldn't dare. The next day, I talked to my mom about it again, hoping she would finally see reason. But she just got defensive and said that BM was doing her best and that we needed to support her. I was at my wit's end. I couldn't keep living like this, but I also didn't want to leave my mom to deal with everything on her own. Then something happened that forced me to make a hard choice. One evening, I came home to find my nephew in a heated argument with BM. She was yelling at him, calling him names, and even threw a glass at him. It shattered against the wall, and that was the last straw for me. I stepped in and told her to leave the house immediately. She refused, and things got physical. My nephew tried to break it up, but BM ended up hitting him in the face. I called the police. When they arrived, BM tried to play the victim, but my nephew and I told them everything that had been happening. They took her away, and I felt a mix of relief and guilt. My mom was furious with me for calling the police, but I couldn't let things continue the way they were. The fallout from that night was intense. My mom and I had a huge argument. She accused me of tearing the family apart and said that I had no right to call the police. I told her that I couldn't stand by and watch BM abuse her kids and my nephew. She didn't want to hear it and told me that if I couldn't support her decisions, I should leave. I spent the next few days crashing at a friend's place while I figured out what to do. I knew I couldn't go back to that toxic environment, but I also didn't want to abandon my mom. I decided to look for a place to stay and found a small apartment that I could afford with my job. It wasn't much, but it was a start. During this time, I also reached out to my older sister, who lives in another state. We hadn't been very close, but I needed someone to talk to. She was shocked to hear what had been happening and offered to help me out. She even suggested that I move in with her until I could get back on my feet. It was a tempting offer, but I didn't want to leave my mom completely alone. I went back to the house to talk to my mom one last time. I told her about my plans to move out and that I would still help her financially if she needed it. She was still angry, but I think she understood that I couldn't stay in that environment any longer. We had a long, emotional conversation about everything that had happened. She admitted that she had been too lenient with BM and that she needed to set some boundaries. As for BM, she was charged with attack and child endangerment. The kids were placed in temporary foster care, and my mom was devastated. She blamed herself for not stepping in sooner and for letting things get so out of hand. I tried to reassure her that she did the best she could, but it was clear that she was struggling with a lot of guilt. In the end, I moved into my new apartment and started focusing on my studies and work. It was a tough transition, but I knew it was the right thing to do. My mom and I are still in touch, and I'm trying to support her as much as I can from a distance. She's been going to therapy to deal with everything that's happened, and I think it's helping her. Looking back, I realized that this whole situation has been a wake-up call for both of us. We've both had to make some hard choices and face some harsh realities, but I think we're stronger for it. I still worry about my mom and the kids, but I know that I did what I had to do to protect myself and my nephew. Thanks for reading and for all your support. Am I the idiot for letting my sister use our joint credit card and ruining my marriage? My wife and I have been married for 5 years now, and together for 8. We are both in our early 30s. We have a 2-year-old son. I was at my parents' house for Father's Day. My youngest sister, Jill, female 26, lives with our parents. My parents are amazing people and always encouraged me to study hard, and I do have a very high-paying job in tech. My wife works in marketing, and we both are very comfortable when it comes to finances. All our finances are joint, and we do not have any individual accounts anymore. We do have some credit cards that are separate, as they all have different rewards. However, we pay for all of them using our joint accounts. On Saturday night, we all decided to go out for dinner to celebrate Father's Day at a nice steakhouse in our town. It was my parents, Jill, and us. When it came time to pay for the dinner, the server brought the check and put it in front of me. My wife and I have this running gag where I always tell the server that my wife will pay, pointing to my wife, and we always get a funny reaction from the server. The real reason why we do it is because she has a credit card that gives better rewards on restaurant purchases. I did the same and gave the check to my wife, and she gave her card. The evening was great. At night, my wife went to bed early with our toddler. My mom, Jill, and I were sitting on the patio, drinking and catching up. Jill asked me why I made my wife pay for the dinner. I told her that it's no big deal as we are married, and all our money is our money. However, Jill said that I need to be more chivalrous towards my wife, as it is the husband's duty to pay at restaurants. She told me that when she goes out on dates, it's a big red flag if the guy does not pay or asks to split the check. I understand that part, and I would do the same when I was dating my wife. However, it only lasted for 2 months before my wife told me that she is not comfortable with me paying for everything, and I should let her pay for stuff too. I was trying to explain to Jill that paying for dates is okay at the start of the dating phase. But after 8 years, you look at finances differently. Jill said that I am just acting like a beta if I let my wife pay in restaurants. We asked for our mom's opinion, and she sided with Jill. She said that my dad has never let her pay for a single meal and always picks up the check. I argued that they also have joint finances, but she said that it's not about the money, but the act of paying that makes men chivalrous and desirable. Now for an update. My sister called me a beta because of an incident that happened over the Father's Day weekend. I want to get opinions from married people on if you think what I did was wrong, or if my sister does have a point. I wanted to ask if I am an AH to let my wife pay for our dinners. Do married women really care if their husbands pay for dinners at restaurants? I am going to talk to my wife about this. I'm really intrigued about what people in long-term relationships think about Jill's comments. Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. She said that it's not about the money but the act of paying that makes men chivalrous and desirable. Well, that's stupid. If you give me the money, I'll pay for the meals of everyone in the restaurant. They're basically saying it's chivalrous to reach into your pocket and grab a credit card, something that anyone can do. Keep doing what you're doing and get those credit card points on the better card. Not the a-hole, NTA. Comment 2. Not the a-hole, NTA. You and your wife are partners. Either way, you're spending your own money. If she gets better rewards on her card, that's just being smart. Your sister and mom may think that it's the act of paying that makes men chivalrous and desirable, but you're not married to them, so their opinions don't matter. If this is fine with you and your wife, it's no one else's business. Now for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for reading. So here's what's been happening since that Father's Day weekend. After that night, I couldn't shake off Jill's comments. I decided to talk to my wife about it, and she laughed it off, saying it was silly to think that way. She reassured me that she didn't mind paying for dinners and that it was just a practical decision. But I couldn't let it go. I started to feel insecure about my role in our marriage. I began to wonder if I was doing enough to be the man in the relationship, as Jill put it. A few days later, I decided to take Jill's advice and started paying for everything when we went out. I thought it would make me feel better, but it just made things awkward. My wife noticed the change and asked me why I was suddenly so insistent on paying. I told her about my conversation with Jill, and she got really upset. She felt like I was letting my sister's outdated views affect our relationship. We had a big argument about it, and it ended with her telling me that she didn't want to go out to eat anymore if it was going to be a source of tension. Meanwhile, things at work started to get stressful. I had a big project deadline coming up, and I was putting in long hours. My wife was also busy with her job, and we were both exhausted. Our son was getting more active and demanding, and we were struggling to keep up. The tension from our argument about paying for dinners was still lingering, and it felt like we were constantly on edge. One night after a particularly long day at work, I came home to find my wife in tears. She had found out that Jill had been talking to our mom about our argument, and they were both criticizing her for not letting me be the man in the relationship. My wife felt betrayed and hurt that my family was interfering in our marriage. She told me that she needed some space and decided to take our son and stay with her parents for a few days. During this time, I tried to focus on work, but I couldn't stop thinking about my wife and son. I missed them terribly and felt guilty for letting things get so out of hand. I realized that I had let Jill's comments affect me more than they should have, and it was causing a rift in my marriage. I decided to call my wife and apologize for everything. I told her that I loved her and that I didn't care about who paid for dinners as long as we were happy. She agreed to come back home, but things were still tense between us. We decided to go to couples therapy to work through our issues. In therapy, we talked about our insecurities and how we let other people's opinions affect our relationship. It was a tough process, but it helped us understand each other better. However, just when things seemed to be getting better, another issue came up. My wife found out that Jill had been using our joint credit card without our permission. She had racked up a significant amount of debt, and we were furious. We confronted Jill about it, and she admitted that she had been struggling financially and didn't know how to ask for help. She apologized and promised to pay us back, but the damage was already done. This incident brought up a lot of unresolved issues between my wife and Jill. My wife felt like Jill had always been a source of tension in our marriage, and she was tired of dealing with her drama. She told me that she didn't want Jill in our lives anymore, and I was torn. Jill was my sister, and I loved her. But I also understood my wife's feelings. In the end, we decided to cut off contact with Jill for a while. It was a difficult decision, but we needed to focus on our marriage and our son. My parents were upset about it, and it caused a lot of tension in the family. They felt like we were overreacting and that we should forgive Jill, but we needed to do what was best for us. Looking back, I realized that a lot of the issues in our marriage stemmed from my insecurities and my inability to set boundaries with my family. I had always been close to my parents and Jill, but I needed to prioritize my wife and son. It was a hard lesson to learn, but it was necessary for the sake of our marriage. As for Jill, I hope that she can get her life together and that we can eventually rebuild our relationship. But for now, we need to focus on healing and moving forward. Thanks for reading. Am I the idiot for leaving my fiancé after his mother turned me into her personal maid? I had been with my fiancé for 8 years, and we had always had an overactive intimacy life. We had intimacy at least once a day from the very start of our relationship. We simply couldn't keep our hands off each other. With that said, we also were just very intimate in general. We were just very close, giving each other body massages or rubbing each other's heads while watching movies, etc. But that all changed 8 months ago. His mom asked us to move in with her because she needed a caregiver. She basically said that she needed someone here to remind her to take her meds, make sure she doesn't fall, drive her to and from appointments, help her with bills, etc. His mom has never been in the best of health, had her first stroke when she was 26 years old. So I truly thought she needed us. And originally, I had no problem helping or doing my part because I loved this woman, and I loved her son, and I wanted to do right by both of them. But I didn't sign up for this shoot. We moved in here 8 months ago, and it is a massive farmhouse. It takes me literally 4 minutes to walk from one end of the house, our room, to the other end of the house, mother-in-law's room. I have been the one cleaning the place. I have been the one cooking meals. Mother-in-law never quit her job and is still working full-time, and literally drives herself to and from work every single day and acts 100% healthy. So I don't know why we are here, unless it's just to pay her bills. We pay half of everything, $600 more than we were paying at our apartment. I work from home, so I'm just constantly by myself now, and my fiancé has not touched me once since we moved in here. Every time I try to be intimate, not even intimacy, he is staring at the bedroom door like his mother is going to walk in any second. We have not had intimacy once since living here because he thinks it's weird and can't sleep with me knowing his mom is in the house and could hear us. If we are downstairs watching a movie in the living room, he won't even hold my hand or anything. It's because of how he was raised. Public displays of affection are an absolute no-no, and his mom is a huge modesty nut, like makes comments about my shirt being too low and needing to cover up. I've told him several times this isn't working for me at all. I feel so disconnected from him at this point that I don't even think I can continue. The flame has died, the spark is no longer there. Half the time we don't even speak to each other anymore, and things are just awkward. We used to talk all the time. Now we can't discuss anything without mommy jumping in. I'm over it. I told him a week ago that I couldn't do this anymore. He begged me to stay, said he would make it up to me, went on to try and initiate intimacy with me 3 days later, but then bailed out, couldn't get it up, and kept saying, "I'm sorry, I'm trying. It just weirds me out that my mom is here." I just rolled over and ignored him. I feel so unwanted at this point. I packed my bags and left the next day while he and his mother were at work. He has been blowing me up ever since, begging me to come back, saying it won't be like this forever and he's sorry, etc. I haven't really answered him, however, because I'm just done. I'm not playing second to mommy. Am I the jerk? Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. What you did is the adult way of handling a situation. He clearly has some deep-rooted issues, possibly shame and guilt around his mother. In a place with a 4-minute distance between rooms, having intimacy shouldn't be a problem at all. If he can't get it up, it means there are real deep-rooted issues that he needs to resolve. You aren't TAH the jerk at all, and what you did is right. This situation is untenable. Distance will be good for you both. Take your time. Don't rush into any decision. Take your time. Comment 2. Not the idiot, not the jerk. Especially as you are not leaving only due to lack of intimacy. You are the scullery maid, and his mom didn't need a caregiver. She wanted a dog's body to cook and clean and reduce her expenses while she continued her work and daily life with more ease. I doubt she'll be as interested in her son living there without you, unless he picks up those chores or pays. The intimacy part is extraneous to being used, and it's weird in such a large house. He has some mommy issues. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for all the comments from the last post. So, here's what's happened since then. After I left, I stayed with my best friend for a while. It was a relief to be out of that house, but I was still feeling pretty lost. My fiancé kept texting and calling, but I ignored most of it. I needed space to think. About 2 weeks after I left, he showed up at my friend's place. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept in days. He begged me to talk, so we went for a walk. He admitted that he had been struggling with the whole situation too. He said he felt trapped between me and his mom, and he didn't know how to handle it. He promised that things would change, that he would set boundaries with his mom and make more time for us. I was skeptical, but I agreed to give him another chance. We decided to go to couples therapy to work on our issues. Therapy was eye-opening. Our therapist helped us see that we both had a lot of unresolved issues. My fiancé admitted that he had always felt responsible for his mom because of her health problems, and that he had a hard time saying no to her. I realized that I had been bottling up my frustrations instead of communicating them effectively. We started working on these issues, and things slowly began to improve. About a month into therapy, something happened that changed everything. My fiancé's mom had a minor stroke. It wasn't life-threatening, but it was a wake-up call for all of us. She was hospitalized for a few days, and during that time, my fiancé and I had to take care of everything at the house. It was stressful, but it also forced us to work together and communicate better. When his mom came home, she was a lot more dependent on us. She needed help with daily tasks and couldn't drive herself to work anymore. My fiancé and I had to step up our caregiving roles, but we also made sure to set boundaries. We talked to his mom about our need for privacy and time alone, and she surprisingly agreed. She even apologized for being so demanding and said she didn't realize how much it was affecting our relationship. With these new boundaries in place, my fiancé and I started to reconnect. We made time for date nights and little gestures of affection. It wasn't easy, but we were both committed to making it work. Our intimacy life slowly started to improve too. It wasn't like before, but it was a start. However, the real turning point came when my fiancé's mom had another health scare. This time, it was more serious, and she had to stay in the hospital for a week. During that time, my fiancé and I had a lot of deep conversations. He opened up about his fears of losing his mom and how it had affected his ability to be present in our relationship. I shared my feelings of loneliness and neglect. These conversations brought us closer together and helped us understand each other better. After his mom came home, we decided to hire a part-time caregiver to help out. It was a big financial commitment, but it was worth it for our sanity and relationship. With the caregiver taking on some of the responsibilities, my fiancé and I had more time for ourselves. We started to feel like a couple again, not just caregivers. But before I get to that, there's something else you should know. During one of our therapy sessions, my fiancé revealed something that shocked me. He admitted that he had been feeling guilty about our relationship because he felt like he was betraying his mom. He said that his mom had always been very controlling and that he had a hard time standing up to her. This revelation helped me understand why he had been so distant and why he struggled with intimacy. We worked through these issues in therapy, and my fiancé started to set more boundaries with his mom. He stopped letting her interfere in our relationship and made it clear that I was his priority. This was a huge step for him, and it made a big difference in our relationship. As for me, I realized that I needed to be more assertive about my needs. I started to speak up more and not let things fester. This helped me feel more in control and less resentful. So, where are we now? Well, things are still a work in progress, but we're in a much better place. We're more connected and communicative, and we're making time for each other. My fiancé's mom is still a part of our lives, but she's no longer the center of it. We've found a balance that works for us, and we're committed to making it work. Thanks for reading. If you liked this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.